Channel. No more code speak. No more trick language. They're coming straight up the middle and telling you what they want. The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting superfortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel, and I am the Black Authority. And you are listening live to the only historically black college and university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. It's time to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program here, folks, before I get started on anything else, I want to tell you here, you got to understand that we are not the cable news outlets. We're not the right-wingers on YouTube. I covered this last week. These folks on that side get paid absolute millions of dollars. They get paid millions of dollars simply to spew their opinion, not even to follow facts, just to spew their opinions against us. If you don't have us, you don't have a voice. And it's times like this that it becomes more apparent than ever why you do. Chuck Schumer gave a speech after the Democrats were clearly going to lose control of the House. Chuck Schumer gives a speech. And in that speech, he makes it known what the agenda is going forward, what the Democrats' agenda is, what it should be. He gives a speech where he says it in no uncertain terms, exactly what they're looking at and exactly what they intend to do. I could say a lot of things, but I'll go ahead and just play it for you.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
Now, I could say a lot of things. I could tell you a lot of things. But all I'm going to say is a picture is worth 1,000 words. If you are one of the people out there who believes that there's some sort of black agenda in here, all I'm going to say is take a look around him. I submit to you, that's the agenda. If you believe that this has any good for black people whatsoever, if you believe that Bowling Ball Martin isn't still the pathological liar you always knew him to be, if you don't think that's the case, all I can say is take a look around, Chuck Schumer. I submit to you, this is who it's for. I submit to you, this is who he has in mind. I submit to you, this is who he's looking out for. This is what he's thinking about. Now, of course, this smacks and blatantly smacks you in the face as part of the anti-black eugenics agenda. These are the same people who sit up here and tell you that black people need to abort their babies on demand. They set up abortion clinics in black neighborhoods, always have since Roe v. Wade. When they couldn't come in and forcibly take away your reproductive ability. They made sure that, boy, you don't have access to stop police brutality. You don't have access to college funds. You don't have access to a dentist, but you can get an abortion. you're within a very short drive of getting an abortion. Now they're telling you there are not enough citizens. The population's not replacing at a fast enough clip here. You've killed like 90 million babies since 1975. Many of them black children. While you've been sitting up here making an express lane for black babies to the abortion clinic, and now, after creating this genocidal situation, they're now telling you, don't worry, we have the solution. You see, the problem is, now that we have instituted a policy that restricts your numbers. On the one hand, we can abort the babies. On the other hand, we got the school to prison pipeline. We got you coming and going. Now that they have created this Holocaust, he's now telling you, well, the only solution is not you, anybody but you. No, the solution is something else. It isn't you. It's not you. Did you catch that? They're telling you that America's population isn't growing fast enough to please the capitalists and the bankers and the industrialists. So the solution isn't to stop encouraging abortion at every step of the way. You want to legalize 11 million illegals. What about the 90 or so million American citizens you've aborted? Notice he doesn't see that as the answer, and they're not setting up abortion clinics at the border to say, hey, come over here, Guadalupe. Really, you can't afford to take care of these kids. We brought you in here for some counseling. Don't worry, Miss Stacey Abrams will be here in a minute. She's going to let you know that, the cost of inflation and the cost of rent and everything, you can't really take care of these kids like that. So you already got 3 of them with you, so you don't need another anchor baby. So you're already pregnant here. We really need to take care of this last one here. So can you really afford to do this? Wouldn't it cramp your style? They set up induction centers at the border, but they're not setting up abortion clinics at the border. So understand what they're telling you here. This is the most gross insult that you could imagine. They've told you to abort your babies at every turn. Now they're telling you, oh, not enough babies were born. We need illegals. We're in a desperate situation. No, we're not. Because this is twofold. You see, this is to make sure that you beat down that black population's numbers to make them politically weak. And now you want to legalize a bunch of illegals to make them politically irrelevant. These are illegals who within one generation, not 2 or 3, within one generation, they will assimilate into these other European cultures, which is what happens. Shout out Jennifer Lopez. Shout out Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez, now remember I gave you this prediction a decade ago. Jennifer Lopez used black people as her economic base. This is the pathway in America. Let me go ahead and lay it out for you. And by the way, if you like tonight's program, hit the likes button for me. If I'm telling the truth, give me a thumbs up in the chat room and hit the likes button for me. Very, very important that we do that. We want to make sure that folks understand this isn't just 2 or 3 people who like what you're hearing on tonight's program here. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and wrap it up early. No reason to stick around longer than we need to. But it's time for us to be real about this. Jennifer Lopez demonstrates the template of how other people use of the pathway to economic prosperity in America. First and foremost, if you're non-black immigrants, you go find some black folk. You use them as your economic base because white society is not going to fool with you. So you use them as your economic base to get yourself solidified. Once you have done that, you then can go ahead and start schmoozing in white society, make a name for yourself, get the manager's position at the Amazon plant, whatever the case may be. You're going to date a few white men or a few white women, whichever side you might fall on there. But when it is time to have children, what you will do is you will go back to the native culture, Asian, Latino, Arab. You got your money off of black folk. You get your social integration off of white people. And once you solidified yourself in the culture, then when it's time to reproduce, you're going to go back to your people. But if that fails, then you go get the bag in white society because you've already cut your teeth at being able to integrate into it. So you see, you can identify into the situation perfectly fine. Jennifer Lopez isn't doing a whole bunch of Latina flexing right now, is she? Jessica Alba wasn't doing a bunch of Latina flexing until they called her out on it. But by the way, you haven't heard her flexing that anymore either. Very interesting thing. Ava Longoria and friends, they had a good run for a minute there, but now that times are hard and it's economically difficult, they're all out to get the bag. Now all of a sudden there's no more Latin flexing. Nobody's doing their Latin flexing anymore now, are they? Accidental? You think that's an accident? This is the pathway. Get your feet wet and get yourself economically established among black people. Springboard from there to connect yourself to the dominant society. When it's time to have a family, you go with your people. And then when it's time to cash out, you go back over into white society and contribute to the greater American economic engine and the dominant society. That's the pathway to citizenship. It's the pathway to citizenship and it's the pathway of citizenship. And when it is over, over a decade ago, this microphone explained it to you. I explained it over a decade ago exactly what was happening. When I said that you are dealing with several facets of European culture. These are all European cultures. German, British, Spanish. With the sole exception of their languages, there really isn't any difference between them. When you talk about the transatlantic slave trade, they were who was all involved. All of these entities were involved. All of them were involved. All of them profited. Now, how in the world do you have all of these European nations at war with each other? France, Britain, Spain. You get the idea. And yet they could all agree on enslaving black people. Now they could all agree on that. I explained this to you going on 15 years ago, that when it all came down, you were dealing with European cultures because black people are accustomed to looking at the beginning of the 20th century when Irish and Italians and Greeks were inducted into whiteness. When they were all finally integrated into whiteness. And remember back then, Spanish folk were allowed to do that too. By the way, I was remembering an old song. Here, as a matter of fact. Because we've been led to sit up here and focus on everybody else. And that's one of those things there where they don't tell you about that. And especially for those of you who are not old enough. But by the way, do you remember the song? Well, there was a dude named Marty Robinson. I had to remember that there for a while ago there. How many of y'all remember Marty Robinson? Oh, we're going way, way long here, aren't we? We're going way, way long. Well, there was a guy named Marty Robbins. Not Marty Robinson, Marty Robbins. Marty Robbins. Oh, there's a bunch of folk that never heard of that there before, huh? Had never heard of that. Let me go ahead and bring him up here for a moment. Hope I'm not going to get a copyright strike, but let me go ahead and bring Marty on up here so you can go ahead and see him. Come on down front here, Marty. Check it here and see. Oh, take a look at that. Y'all remember this? That's Marty Robbins. This is an old song. Well, you take a look there.
Out in the West Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with a Mexican girl.
In case you couldn't understand the lyrics there. Out in the West Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with a Mexican girl. Perfectly fine. Go ahead, knock yourself out. No issues there. No issues there. That song was made back in 1959. 1959. Before the civil rights movement proper kicked off. I'm bringing this up to you to make a point. See, for those of you who are young, you think that Latina chasing is new. You didn't know it's just your turn. It's not new. The dominant society has been about that. He's talking about El Paso as if he was talking about Boise. And by the way, this is just one of many. This is just one of many. There are a number of different songs just like this. The other day, I was just thinking about it and whatnot, and that it come to me. I'm about to say, by the way, Marty Robbins, didn't he make a song that said something like that? Just straight up the middle with it. That's perfectly fine. But my whole point here is that as black people, your experience in these non-black circles is not the same as white society's experience. Their experience has been very pleasant. Their experience has been very pleasant because they already know the deal. You are dealing with European cultures. As I have always told you, you are dealing with a group of European cultures. And they're setting that agenda. Now you're finding out just how tight the agenda has been all this time. Now, early in the 20th century, the reason why I brought up Marty Robbins is because early in the 20th century, those were white people. They were white people. We can talk about LULAC and whatever, but these were white folk. They were ethnic white people. And that was okay right up until the 1970 census. Nope, not white anymore. You're something else legally. Okay, but when they have the opportunity to choose, 7 out of 10 identify as white. And you see, on paper, they might have the option of putting Latino or Hispanic non-white, but in practice, in the society, they move and operate as white people. You are white until spoken otherwise. Anybody who works at a hospital in California, in Texas, in New York, in Florida, anybody who works at a hospital in any of those places, you know full well, Latino is white. There is no distinction. None. There is no distinction made whatsoever. Until the Afro-Latinos show up. As soon as the Afro-Latinos attempt to flex their Latinness, that's when things get ugly. Things get ugly as soon as the non-white Latinos attempt to crash the party. Once that occurs, then the Anglos and the white Latinos, all of a sudden it gets ugly. It gets ugly. So if you're asking yourself how Chuck Schumer, who himself is Jewish, is so concerned about bringing in non-white people, he's not even bringing in Jewish people, he's bringing in non-white people. If you're wondering why he is so concerned about that, It is because this has always been the agenda. We've been telling you all, talking about supporting the Democrats. This has always been the Democrats' agenda. From LBJ to BHO, Barack Hussein Obama. Or from LBJ to JB, to old JB, Joe Biden. A 60-year stratagem for the purposes of getting the former slaves out of the streets. Getting the former slaves and their descendants out of the streets. The former slaves have started to increase in numbers to the point that they're able to elect their own mayors in cities. The agenda is very, very clear. Empty out the cities, destroy the economies, abort the babies, criminalize the males, corrupt and indoctrinate the females into believing that they have some sort of white privilege of their own. Divide, destroy, conquer. And then in 60 years, we'll go sweep up the pieces. But they've known this the entire time. They've known this the entire time. Strom Thurmond and Robert Byrd, they were giving speeches saying that they would rather see the American flag trampled underfoot of enemy soldiers than to see the Negro take power in America. Well, what they have decided is, understand something. I'm about to go a little bit deep in this with you right quick, because I want you to understand how nation states operate. Xi Jinping, the chairman of the Communist Party in China, he's essentially the president of China. You remember a few months ago, he gave a speech about Taiwan. For those of you who don't know your history about China and Taiwan and Chiang Kai-shek, long story short, Taiwan is where when the communists took over, they ran the old leadership in China out and they all fled over to the island of what is now Taiwan. But China has always considered Taiwan to be a part of China, not an independent nation. That Taiwan is Chinese soil. That is the political position of the Chinese government. It is not actually a geopolitical fact, but China is like, yeah, that's a renegade province. And they've been on a mission now for decades to recapture that renegade province. And if you remember, Xi Jinping gave a speech where he said, we are not going to pass this problem on to the next generation. The issue of what to do about Taiwan is going to be solved by us in this generation. The issue of what to do with Taiwan will be solved by our generation. We will not pass this on to the next one. I submit to you all that when I told you a decade ago that this was about determining white supremacy for the next 500 years, I submit to you all that they are not going to pass the decisions on to the next generation or the generation after that. They're going to attempt to deal with this situation now, right here, right now. They want to put all the pieces in place and put all the wheels in motion now. Today, here. And folks will be screaming and yelling, this is radical action. They can no longer move in the shadows. They're now saying, we're not going to pass this on to the next generation. We're not going to slow walk it anymore. Black folk are in open rebellion. The defeat of Stacey Abrams in Georgia, I told everybody that is the one to watch, because that is the one that determines whether or not black people are still safely on the hook. They were watching that one in the Democratic Party. They were watching it with anxious, bated breath, beads of sweat pouring down their foreheads. And when she went down in defeat, not just went down in defeat, but she got trampled. As we covered last week, far worse by almost, in 2018, she lost by 10,000 votes, and 18,000 votes. This time she lost by 300,000. And they understand that if black people had been fully mobilized, well, this wouldn't have occurred. But they are listening to what we're saying. They spent Stacey Abrams' entire campaign responding to us in the new black media saying, you got to come vote. Stop telling folk don't vote. You got to come vote. Now they understand they don't have the sway that they used to have. It's only a matter of time before this contagion reaches critical mass. And you will lose complete control of the black body politic. So they're saying we cannot wait. You got to hit the panic button now. You have got to hit it now. We cannot wait. Because the message and the mission is the leader. The narrative is taking root. People are buying in. You can't wait anymore. We got to push it and run with it now. This is why you've got city council members in Los Angeles. One step down, the others won't. They're flexing it now. They're letting you know, yeah, we're pushing the agenda now. Not in 20 years from now, today. All of them ganging up on black folk. We're going to push the anti-black agenda now. We've got to destabilize and replace them now. It cannot wait. It cannot wait. Not anymore. The situation is too dire. Nancy Pelosi lost her speakership. Boy, she was sitting there crying and boo-hooing, trying to keep a stiff upper lip. Nancy Pelosi understands, don't you all know that was a gut shot? Every time the Democrats lose, they point to black folk. This time was the first time you didn't hear them saying that quite so openly. And that's because they want to give the impression that we were not involved now, which is very, very strange because that was all we heard before election night. Soon as we said here in the new black media, that's right, by the way, bring it over here. After you lose this election, come back over here to us and we'll give you the post-mortem. Now they're saying, hey, don't hand that microphone to them. And Chuck Schumer goes out with a crowd of non-black immigrants and their supporters to tell you that this is the agenda. This is what the agenda is. This is what the agenda must be. And he's telling you we cannot wait. It can't wait. Folks, this has got nothing to do with Republicans. He's letting you know that this cannot wait because of black people. It cannot wait. They don't say these things because they're bored. They say them because it's the truth.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
Now, notice he hasn't talked about black people. You've heard nothing about it. Hasn't said anything about that. And that's the point. That has always been the point. Now, Chuck Schumer, who I believe also comes from an immigrant background, there's a reason why that for him. As far as he's concerned, as long as they're sitting in the catbird seat and they can pull the levers of power, everybody else will be relegated to a workforce, or at the very least, they will be regarded as friendlies. But let's be very, very clear. They are building a bridge for Latinos and they're building a wall for black folk. For Haitians and Africans, it's a wall. For Latinos, it's an escalator. For Latinos, they're building a door, a revolving door. For your so-called black immigrants, they're building a wall. Anybody but black people. We will take anybody but black people. We are bolstering anybody but black people. This is the unfinished business of slavery. The unfinished business of slavery. Now the sheet's been ripped off of them. And now you're seeing the naked agenda showing itself that, oh no, not 5 million, 11 million, however many there are. Don't you understand if this was black folk like that, he would never say anything like that. While they're telling black people what cannot be done for us, while they're giving us nobody said we need to have a study. Do you notice nobody is suggesting a study? Where are the study people? Where are all the folks who were telling us that we didn't understand? We can't go for reparations because you got to have a study. You can't do this without a study. You need to have a study and a survey. Remember that? What happened to the need for a study? Shouldn't we study what will happen if you sit up here and grab a bunch of 11 million random folk? Shouldn't we study what will occur then? Folks, they started legalizing illegals before, and we're still not paying college athletes yet. College athletes can't have a job, but illegals can. Let me make sure you all understand that. Let me make sure you understand that. Even in your southern states, supposedly your SEC powerhouses and whatnot, understand that for a moment here. So let me get this straight. Your black college athletes can't have a job, but illegal aliens can. Think about that for a few moments. I ain't lying. But we have to have a study for reparations. We got to have a study for us. And yes, I'm aware of what's happening out there in San Francisco. I posted about that on my Twitter page. We'll come back to San Francisco here in just a moment. This is a story that I put up here from Now This, I think it was. They were talking about that. Yeah, Now This. About a couple in Texas wanting to adopt some Native American children because of their quote unquote religious beliefs. Now I'm like, what the hell religion you got? This is you got to adopt Native American children. You're a white couple. Shouldn't you be looking for white children? And yet that's not what they want to do. Now, I want you to listen to what this story here says.
So the Brackens are a white couple living in Texas, and based on public statements they've made and blog posts the wife made, for religious reasons, they feel it's very important that they adopt Indian children, and they've elected to do so. However, the Indian Child Welfare Act does allow for tribes to intervene and to have a say in what happens to their children.
Now, she's referring to ICWA, ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act. Now, she's going to explain exactly what that act does.
The Indian Child Welfare Act is a law that Congress passed in 1978.
By the way, Congress passed this law in 1978. So it shouldn't be any surprise right after black folk in the 1960s finally get a few crumbs flicked off the table, all of a sudden they go to work for everybody else. Okay, here comes LGBT, Native Americans, immigrants. All of a sudden it kickstarts everybody else. You haven't finished the work on black people yet, and yet you're turning to all these other groups. Why? Why all of a sudden you got unfinished business over here? Why would you do that in 1978 when you've got so much unfinished business sitting over here? That's not accidental when you do something like that. Remember the time frame.
The Indian Child Welfare Act is a law that Congress passed in 1978 that creates procedural safeguards to protect the lives, safety, and welfare of Native children, so that if an Indian child is being taken from his or her their home for any reason, we make sure that that child, the priorities are that child ends up with his or her family first. And we only place Indian children with complete strangers if there aren't any other healthy, good options available within that child's family or tribal nation or community. And that's really a best standard for really any child, but it was really important, and it still is important for Indian children because our kids are targeted by the adoption industry and by states who have prejudice and bias against Native families and Native nations.
Well, that's interesting, ma'am. You know what? I would be very, very prone to give you the benefit of the doubt on that, even though I can't necessarily prove it myself. I'd be very inclined to give you the benefit of the doubt, especially because it's black folk by I'll be damned. Isn't that what we've been saying? Haven't we been saying this about black people and black children all this time? Isn't that what we've been saying? This is exactly the arguments that we made, and yet there's no law for us. We talk about targeted. There's nobody more targeted than black people, and yet you've never heard of anybody carving out something like this for us. Never heard anything like that before. Never. Nobody, if you want to sit there and say, well, Jason, this is because they are a nation. They're not a nation, but anyway, they want to be, they acknowledge as a nation. Okay, you can't do it based on race. Every time black folks show up, then all of a sudden we can't do it based on race. Every time black people show up, you can't do it based on race. Now, everything else is enacted based on race. As soon as black people show up, all of a sudden we're told it can't be based on race. All of a sudden, you can't do that. Okay, fine. The former descendants of the former slaves. Now, we've been targeted because we are a nation of the descendants of former slaves. We are a lineage. Fine. But I just want you to understand what they're saying here, because what she's saying, this applies directly to black people, and yet no one has stated it this way. Our kids are getting grabbed up by Madonna and Charlize Theron and any other sick, twisted deviant who wants to come around the corner and mind warp these children. Our kids are being targeted. Been targeted, and we've been talking about this forever. And listen to how she describes this.
Make sure that that child, the priorities are that protect the lives, safety, and welfare of Native children, so that if an Indian child is being taken from his or her their home, to protect the lives.
All right, now I want you to see that third clause in there. See that third clause in there. I'm going to start from the second one first, that Congress, through statutes, treaties, and the general course of dealing with Indian tribes, has assumed the responsibility for the protection and preservation of Indian tribes and their resources. People, this is in law. Didn't require a plebiscite, a study, a committee, a commission, a Sunday go to meeting. It didn't require any of that. They got a law back in 78. I want you to read the words on this screen because you are bound to the letter of the law. Not whatever you assume the intent of it is. Look at what that says. I'm not giving you conspiracy theory. This is what it says, that Congress has plenary power over Indian affairs. You really want some good reading, you ought to go ahead and check out what the ICWA says. For those of you who don't know what the word plenary means, it means unqualified absolute. In case you were wondering, Congress has plenary power over Indian affairs. That means absolute. For those of you who did not know, absolute power over Indian affairs. And then it goes on to clause number 2, that Congress, through statutes, treaties, and the general course of dealing with Indian tribes. Do you realize that last sentence there was a whole lot longer than the first part? It says that Congress, through statutes, treaties, those are just 3 words, through statutes, treaties, and the general course of dealing with Indian tribes. In other words, simply because of their contact and interaction. You need to understand that is separate and apart from the statutes and treaties. This is law. It's separate and apart from it. It's saying, by the way, it's not simply because of statutes. It's not simply because of treaties for all the damn people out there talking about, well, we're the original Native Americans and they need to honor our treaties. This thing here right here is telling you, by the way, we're the white government. We don't need a treaty or a statute to justify our plenary power. We can do it because we are the government. Which is what Neely Fuller has been saying for the longest time, what Louis Farrakhan has been saying for the longest time, what Jason Black has been saying for the longest time. We don't have to go through all these damn hoops and rigmarole and backflips and acrobatics. People, it says right here in the law. It's in the law that Congress has this power simply because they have in the general course of dealing with you. So in other words, if you think about it, this really kind of dovetails with qualified immunity. That, well, simply because of the course of your job duties, you've got, unless the Supreme Court says you don't have this power and don't have this ability, you've got it. You've got it unless the court says you don't have it. You're going to have to get a court to say you don't have this ability. So you've got all the powers you want unless somebody says you don't have it. Well, guess what? This law is sitting here telling you statutes, treaties, and the general course of dealing with Indian tribes that Congress has assumed the responsibility for the protection and preservation of Indian tribes and their resources. Then you come down to clause number 3. That there is no resource that is more vital to the continued existence and integrity of Indian tribes than their children, and that the United States has a direct interest as trustee in protecting Indian children who are members of or are eligible for membership in an Indian tribe. People that have never spoken about black people like this ever. They have never spoken about the descendants of the American slaves like this ever. You have never heard these sentences used in reference to us, ever. That there's no more vital a resource than your children. Well, I'll be damned while your Margaret Sanger's descendants are opening up abortion clinics on every damn block. It says it right there in the law. They're acknowledging this in the wording that there is no resource that is more vital to the continued existence and integrity of Indian tribes than their children. Now, folks, let's be very, very clear. A tribe is a race. Let's cut the bull crap. A tribe is a race. A tribe is a race of people. Until you actually share the blood of those people, you are a guest. But don't let anybody sit up here and deceive you or fool you. Folks, a tribe is a race. A tribe is a race, people. And you can see what they're saying here. Now, you take a look at clause number 4. It says that an alarmingly high percentage of Indian families are broken up by the removal, often unwarranted, of their children from them by non-tribal public and private agencies, and that an alarmingly high percentage of such children are placed in non-Indian foster and adoptive homes and institutions. You are describing black children right now. You are describing black children right now. You're describing how they have been targeted. That's what you're describing right now. Now, they were able to make this law in 1978. Notice they didn't extend it to the descendants of the slaves. They didn't extend it to anybody else here. They made this law right here and said, okay, that's fine. Because the demographics were different back then. Latinos don't need a law like this. By the way, black people do not have these protections. When Dr. Claude Anderson refers to quote unquote protected classes of people, this is what he's talking about. When he refers to protected classes, this on your screen, it literally has the word protection in it. It literally says that the United States Congress has assumed the responsibility for the protection of Indian tribes. That same government has yet to claim the need or responsibility for the protection of the descendants of the slaves who have been targeted, lynching, which still continues to this day, targeting of black children, which continues to this day. But these other folks have protections already written into law. Folks, how many marches did the Native Americans have to do? How many marches did they have to do? How many riots did they have to execute? How many politicians did they have to kidnap? How many college curriculums did you have to make? 1619 Project. How many college curriculums and social movements did it take to get this? How the hell is it that Native Americans were able to get this and they didn't have to do any of the things that we are still having to do today? They didn't have to lift a finger. Folks, the Native American population is not big enough to have any political power anywhere. This was long before the Indian casinos, folks. Decades before the Indian casinos. So that means that Congress simply did this because they wanted to. Well, what the hell? You've been steamrolling these folk now for centuries. Why is it in 1978 it was so important to protect the children? Because if you'll all notice, everybody else is being told we need to protect your kids. They're sending children across, these women from Mexico and whatnot are sending their children across the border unaccompanied. Mom of the year over there. And they're saying, oh, we got to take care of the kids and protect the kids over here. We got to protect them. Black children? Oh, you're a grown man at the age of 5. You're a grown woman at the age of 4. You don't have any rights. You're an adult at the age of 6. And there is no law that acknowledges this and then acknowledges the need for protection. Now, Asians have a hate crime bill for Asians. Native Americans have a protection law. As you can see, only one group of people doesn't have anything to protect them. White folk are protected by affirmative action. Black people, however, do not have anything that protects our life and limb. Black people do not have anything that acknowledges the past, present, and ongoing system of oppression against us and targeting of us. Never seen a law like this in your life for black folk, have you? And just read the wording.
Act is a law that Congress passed.
Now, by the way, I want to back up here so you can see this first part again. It says, recognizing the special relationship between the United States and the Indian tribes and their members. The United States government has a special relationship with black folk. That's why they've been targeting us for annihilation now for 200 plus years. There's a special relationship with us too. As a matter of fact, it is the premier relationship.
In 1978 that creates procedural safeguard to protect the lives, safety, and welfare of Native children so that if an Indian child is being taken from his or her their home for any reason, we make sure that that child, the priorities are that child ends up with his or her family first.
So did you hear that? She said, if a child is taken out of the home for any reason, but that's white privilege right there. Ain't no loophole. Did you hear that? She said, if they're taken out of the home for any reason. See, this is language that empowers people when it says it doesn't matter the reason you showed up. It doesn't matter why you're here, Mr. Government, Mr. Child Protective Services. It doesn't matter why you showed up. If you wish to remove these children for any reason, the default of the law is that we are going to look for a relative, if there's one available, to place the children with. Doesn't matter why you showed up. So you see, it doesn't matter how corrupt the Child Protective Services might be. It doesn't matter how corrupt the adoptive agencies might be. What they're saying is, it doesn't matter if they show up at your doorstep for any reason. Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you're guilty of abuse. It doesn't matter why they're there. The default is that we are going to look for a relative to place the child with. We are not going to look to adopt the child out. We are going to first and foremost look to see if there's a relative to put them with, no matter what the reason is they showed up. Sound familiar? Like your illegal aliens. It doesn't matter what the reason is that the police have stopped you or shown up. We're going to start invoking your rights, even though you're, as a non-citizen, you don't actually have those rights.
For any reason, we make sure that the priorities are that child ends up with his or her family first. And we only place Indian children with complete strangers if there aren't any other healthy, good options available within that child's family or tribal nation or community.
Now, did you hear what she said? We're only going to place the child with someone outside the tribe if there's no safe or acceptable alternatives within the family or within the tribal nation. So in other words, even if it's a non-relative, if it's just a random Native American who wants to adopt a kid, let's see if they'll work out. So in other words, dealing with non-Native Americans is a weapon of last resort. She's sitting here telling you what it means.
And we make sure that the priorities are that child ends up with his or her family first. And we only place Indian children with complete strangers if there aren't any other healthy, good options available within that child's family or tribal nation or community.
Within their family, tribal nation, or community. Folks, this is language in the United States law that says that Native Americans are responsible for policing and overseeing their own communities, and that the United States government is not going to be allowed to step in unless there's absolutely no other alternative. Where black folk are concerned, daddy government shows up first. They teach your children, your women, your elderly, they're supposed to look to white society first. These folks have it in law that no, actually white society's hands off.
And that's really a best standard for really any child, but it was really important, and it still is important for Indian children because...
Yeah, it's a great standard for any child. Too bad black children don't have it.
And that's really a best standard for really any child, but it was really important, and it still is important for Indian children because our kids are targeted by the adoption industry and by states who have prejudice and bias against Native families and Native nations. When that process started, the Brackeens were very upset, but ultimately that process did not result in them losing the child they wanted to adopt. They actually filed their lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of ICWA after they knew they were getting to adopt the kid that they wanted to adopt.
Now, think about that for a few moments. She said that this white couple sued after they were given permission to adopt the child that they wanted to. Now, usually in a court of law, you have to have legal standing. These folks didn't have, if they were approved for the child, they don't have legal standing. You can't claim you're being prevented from doing something if you've just been told you're allowed to do it. But they're like, don't worry about it. We'll go ahead and we'll sue anyway. Yeah, you told us yes, but we're going to go ahead and sue anyway. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? That tells you that this is not about the children's best interests. This is about white people having the ability to lay their hands on any child anywhere and claim them. This is about white people having beyond human rights. They've got special privileges. If they want your child, they can have them. If they want your child, they're now saying, we want to etch this into law. If we want your child, we can have them. This goes beyond the law right now, folks. This goes beyond the law and anything else. This is white privilege. How dare you tell us that we cannot take your child? And folks, by the way, I mean take your child. I want you to understand how scary this is. I myself do not have children, not biological children. I've got thousands of foster children when you think about it, but I don't have any biological children. But do you all understand right now how simple it is if they want to target you to take your children out of the home? Do you realize how simple that can be? They got your kids in school right now and they've given the teachers permission to do everything, including have sexual conversations with your children. They've given them permission to do that. All you got to do is have a teacher who's going to sit up there and pull a Gabrielle Union and try to tell your child that, oh, your parents don't understand. You're not a boy. You're really a girl. Don't mess around and hit these kids in their teenage years. They start getting rebellious. You get some sexually deviant individual in the classrooms to tell you, your parents need to let you go ahead and explore your sexuality. If they're not, that's abuse. Next thing, don't worry, we'll back you up. See, that's the way they do that. That's the way they do that. Y'all got to understand, when you're talking about women and the so-called women's rights movement, you're talking about black women trying to be black feminists, the white daddy government only supports you when you go against black people. You can get plenty of government support if you want to go against black people. Now, if you want to defend black people, get ready to walk into a tidal wave. Get ready to walk into a tidal wave. But if you want to go against black people, oh, well, don't worry. There's plenty of government help for that. For your women, for your children. Yeah, you get plenty of backup. Don't worry. We'll walk over there and show them. Your women run the house. Your children run the house. So I just want you to understand the door that's being opened here. By the way, we can come up for any reason and we can come get your kids and you'll have to prove it's not in your best interest. Oh, well, don't worry. While you've been messing around, we got a white family that's already waiting to adopt them. There's an LGBT couple already waiting to adopt them, but they've been on TikTok learning how to braid hair. They've been on TikTok learning how to braid hair. Don't worry, they're already ready. As a matter of fact, why don't we go ahead and place them now, and then we can see if you can qualify to get your own children back. Okay, what it says there is that AI American Indian adoptees were more likely than expected under the null hypothesis to self-report alcohol addiction, alcohol recovery, drug addiction, drug recovery, self-assessed eating disorder diagnosis, self-harm, suicidal ideation. For those of you who don't know, ideation means suicidal thoughts. And attempted suicide than whites. There were no significant differences for depression and depression diagnosis. They're telling you that their kids are at risk. At MSNBC before she got fired. You don't understand what it is. Jason said tribe is a race. What does it say there? A study by the Centers for American Indian and Alaska Native Health considered transracial adoptions as a contributing factor to why indigenous adoptees are more prone to substance abuse and mental health issues. Transracial adoptions. Racial. Did you get that? Racial. You were told that you could not make a law. Well, we can't do that for just one race. We can't do that. You're taking a look at exactly how now this is telling you that these folks are saying these transracial adoptions. This isn't Jason Black saying it. I'm just wanting you to understand that you are dealing with tricky, devious devils. They are tricky, devious devilish group of individuals. And they're doing that. So if I don't sit here and tell you what it is, then will you know? Somebody else will try to tell you it's something else. No, it's not. It's I'm white and I say so. They're sitting up here telling you that boys can actually be girls and girls can actually be boys. Now they're telling you your tribe isn't a race. No, I'm letting you know exactly what it is. Well, when it's convenient for us, it can be whatever we want it to be, whenever we want it to be. You can be a citizen, you can be a non-citizen. You can be black, you can be white, you can be whatever we want you to be. But guess what? You don't get to choose what you are, we are. As soon as a black person tries to claim they're white or Jewish, all of a sudden they let you know, oh no, you ain't. Rachel Dolezal could claim to be transracial. She could claim to be black. Soon as you get up and try to be white, you can't even be Meghan Markle and cross over. As soon as you attempt to claim whiteness or any white ethnicity thereof, you can't claim to be white Latino. Anybody who's Dominican knows that. You can't claim no whiteness. You're up there in New York City. You've got no whiteness to claim. You've got none. You try to claim to be Jewish and Hebrew, and you know how that one's going to go. You can't claim that. Hell, you can't even claim to be Arab. You can't even claim to be that. They're going to stop you quick, fast, and in a hurry.
I'd say one of the things I hear most often is just this aching, this grief, this longing to figure out who you are. You know, I think as Native people, as American Indians, as citizens of tribal nations, we have this connection to something before the United States, something that's been here on this land since time immemorial. I think disconnecting us as citizens of tribal nations from our language, from our culture, it's just a continuation of the genocide that the United States sought to accomplish in the 1700s and 1800s, but couldn't. If you can take a nation's children, you'll eradicate that nation, because without any...
Yeah. You know, if you can take people's children, hell, you know, the sweet spot is if you can get the children before they even become children. Why, if you can target the children in the womb with government policy, government money, government assistance, government placement, government public service announcements, people. Government public service announcements. If you can target a people's babies, if you can target their infants, hell, we won't even have to worry about adopting them out. Don't even have to worry about that.
Sought to accomplish in the 1700s and 1800s, but couldn't. If you can take a nation's children, you'll eradicate that nation, because without any children, you literally do not have a nation anymore. And the folks who are fighting ICWA understand that.
Now, you remember here when we were talking about, I was talking a couple of weeks ago, when they were going in on Kyrie Irving, and you're hearing these folks, I showed you about the Asians and fighting affirmative action, and their group is basically representing them pro bono. Well, guess what? These Brackings, the Brackings are being represented pro bono. Got black folk rotting away in prison and can't get a lawyer. But if you want to attack black people, or if you want to empower yourself as white folk to potentially attack black people, attorneys at the ready. They're ready to take your case. No standing in line. No public defender for you. Oh, no. No public defender for you. You get kicked straight to the front of the line. You get all the help you need. Unlimited legal resources.
I mean, the youth at Standing Rock, the tribal leaders showed up, but at first it was the youth. It was kids, children. It was children who are protected by ICWA who stood up and said no to that pipeline because they had relatives who were buried in the path of that pipeline. And the pipeline didn't like that, right? But if you can eliminate those nations, if those nations no longer exist, then I think oil and gas understands there's a lot more profit to be had.
Sound familiar? You see, it was black youth, it was young black people who took to the streets after Trayvon Martin, after Eric Garner, after Philando Castile, after George Floyd. It was young black people, and we've been documenting it since the very first uprising. It's young black people. It's not the old. It's not the old guard. It's not the civil rights generation. It's not the buck-broken generation. It's young black people who are in the streets. Despite all of this chicanery, despite all this evil, it's been young black people who took to the streets. Despite genocidal abortion rates, it's been young black people taking to the streets. So the reason why they target your young people in the classrooms, in elementary schools, this is domination. It's no longer, since the law has tripped them up a little bit, it's like, okay, you're no longer able to get to them as well as you could, so go ahead and put this in front of this Supreme Court now. Put it in front of them. They've already knocked off the Voting Rights Act and started gutting the Civil Rights Act. Let's go ahead and see if we can go ahead and do these other ones here and give Anglos unfettered access and control across the society. Let me explain to you what that does. What that does when you give Anglos unfettered access and control across the society is what it does is it encourages non-black, non-white people. If you can follow that. They're non-white people who are not black. It encourages them to claim whiteness. Those who can. That is a way of encouraging them. What you do is you make it hell for the. It's like, if you was white, you'd have more privileges and power. Well, who the hell don't want that? Just about everybody else can pass for white or is accepted as white except us. So for everybody else, you put this pressure on them. Hey man, you don't have any privileges over here. White folk do as they please. They go as they please. They backed up and they got the firepower, the system, and the resources, everything. And the next thing you know, you are encouraging these other people to pursue being white, to pursue supporting it. Hell, if there's an N for them. And there's a secondary place, it doesn't matter who you are, they got a secondary slot carved out for you. They got a secondary slot that's carved out for you. We can do that. We can do that. We can make sure you got a secondary slot carved out for you. So yeah, we can take care of that for you here. All you have to do is sign on for the agenda. All you got to do is sign on for the agenda. And if you're willing to do that, we'll take care of the rest. So yes, ma'am, I am very familiar. But there's a reason why they don't like that. They don't like that because this is the kind of thing we're not supposed to be talking about. We're not supposed to be talking about how that works. I know YouTube is messing with it super heavy tonight because y'all got to understand we're not doing the MSNBC talk over here. We're not doing that. I'm sitting here bringing you the facts. I'm bringing you the specific laws that you can quote. I'm showing you how they're empowering and protecting other people so long as they're not black. Anybody but black people. Asian, Jewish, Arab, Native American, LGBT, any illegal aliens, you're not even citizens. Anybody except black people. It's not an accident. That's policy. And that's the way their devilish policy works. So when you got somebody sitting up here in some of my comment section about Stacey Abrams, all these folks sitting up here trying to defend the Democrats, and they're going to be the very ones up here telling you about we can't do anything like this for you. No, give us what you've given the Native Americans in 1978. What you gave the illegal aliens in 1985. What you've given the Afghans in 2020. The Ukrainians in 2022. We want that right there. The Asians in 2021, 2022. We want, beginning 2022, we want that right there. We want that. We want exactly what they got. You did it for them and it didn't require a study, a bill, or anything else. You just went ahead and whacked it on right out in the law. Yeah, we want that. And without it, no tangibles, no vote. That's the nice way of putting it. There are others, but we'll come back to that. In any case, we're going to go ahead and take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When we come back, we are going to be seeing about taking some phone calls, so be looking for that here as well. In the meantime, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program here on PayPal, Cash App, or Super Chat. Big shout out to No over there on Cash App. Thank you very much for your support. My girl Brenda Starr, we appreciate that. Yimmy and Chadwick, thank you very much for your support here tonight. We're going to take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. This is The Black Channel.
Hey, I'm Marcus. For a while, I walked around with this empty feeling inside. I had a full-time job, but not in the field I wanted to be in. But then I came across this book where it was like, the title was just for me. Guide to Being Black in IT. I read the book and the author took me through scenarios and gave me tips. I sat down and read it and it only took an hour. After I got done, I took advice in the book, practiced in the labs, and got certified. Then I literally got up and applied for a position with this company I've been looking at for a while and got the job. Thanks to that book, I worked my job with confidence. If you're looking to get into IT or even in the field, now this is a must-read book. Go to www.beingblackinit.com.
I am black first. I am empowered. I am on code. I am motivated. I am a proud foundational. My name is Naria Sellers, and nothing will come between us. Buy the sci-fi novel, Nothing Will Come Between Us. Order today at Amazon and Google Play. Visit spiritofo1811publishing.com. Our story, our family.
Join 6zeros.net, a forum built to discuss all things relevant to black people. On our forum, a check doesn't mean you're famous. It means your blackness has been verified by our staff.
Sorry, Chad.
We also have premium merchandise with same-day shipping on most orders. And when you're ready for some dope content, check out the 0 Hour blog.
Don't just sign up, post.
I'm having a really good time with you tonight.
I'm having a good time with you too.
Want to go somewhere private? Just for us?
I like that.
Great. Meet me at 6zeros.net. Black owned, black operated.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slavery and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is The Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And the telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933, your personal access code to the black media. You will never hear what you heard tonight on Bowling Ball Martin. You will never hear this on MSNBC. You will never hear this on CBS. Hell, you won't hear this on Al Jazeera. Because the truth of the matter is, it is everybody against black. You won't hear it on Telemundo or Univision. You're not going to hear this anywhere except here. Because we are the only media outlet that is broadcasting in black people's interests. Everybody else is aligned against us. It's not accidental when you hear these kind of things. They know what they're doing. This has been the agenda for a long time. Now they're just coming out and saying it. Now they're coming out and telling you. Before now, they didn't have the courage to, because if you spell these things out in plain English, you make yourself vulnerable. That's not what they came for. They didn't do this to be vulnerable. They did it because they wanted to make themselves invulnerable. And this has been an agenda going at work for a while. So when you have people out here trying to tell you that this has something to do with us, that this is somehow related to black people, it isn't. And it is. It's not related to anything to empower us. It's not related to anything that's going to empower us. And that's not the point. His point isn't to empower us. You've never seen any of these Democrats. You've never seen them anywhere sitting up here. When's the last time you saw Chuck Schumer holding a press conference with a bunch of black folk talking about the dire need and necessity of reparations for us? When have you seen that? When have you seen protection against police brutality? When's the last time you saw him do something like that? Has he ever done that? Hell, you can't get your black representatives to do that. You can't get the black representatives to do that. Anybody who dismisses this right here, just understand they are in work against us. They are in league against us. They know it. And I'm going to say something that's going to upset a lot of people here tonight. But it's true. There's a good number of black folk who have an anybody but black agenda of their own. They are in favor of anything except doing anything for black people. Do you all understand that? Take a look at the old niggas in your family. Did he just say that? I sure said it. Take a look at the old niggas in your family. All these illegals and whatnot, see, they've been under white supremacy's boot for so long, they're comfortable there. I mean, they brought themselves a pillow and a cot and a little microwave. They are comfortable to the extent that there's anything else happening here. They can take that. Black people being empowered, that's scary. Y'all ain't gonna do nothing with that money. You don't need no reparations. Okay, well, let's go ahead and make sure we stop Native Americans and everything else. Well, I mean, they need that right there, brother. I mean, you know, I saw that movie Dancing with Wolves. They need that. I want you to understand that. It's not accidental when you see these kind of things. They know what they're doing. And you'll have black folk who they've been under the boot for so damn long, they'll just go ahead and go along with it. They'll just go ahead and go along with it. They're seeing black people empowered is scarier to them than anything else. So this is why I talk to young people, because young people are not as afraid to be empowered. If we can get to them young enough, that changes everything. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines here and take a few phone calls, though. The telephone number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933, your personal access code to the Black Channel. Let me get caller from area code 202. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Yusuf, calling from Washington, D.C.
Yusuf from D.C., what's on your mind?
I was looking. Thank you very much. I was just recently looking at the 1965 Immigration and Nationalization Act bill that was passed by Lyndon B. Johnson. And the bill, when he signed the bill, he was on the foot of the Statue of Liberty. And the bill, he said, quote, unquote, the bill that we signed today is not a revolutionary bill. It does not affect the lives of millions. It will not reshape the structure of our daily lives, or really add importantly to either our wealth or our power. And then Senator Ted Kennedy, which is the bill's floor manager, said it will not upset the ethnic mix of our society. So basically everything that they said, it was the opposite. They basically lied. Everything that they said when he signed it, he said today it is not a revolutionary bill. It is a revolutionary bill. It changed the whole landscape of America, so much so that the number of according to the Migration Policy Institute, the number of new lawful permanent residents or green card holders that rose from 297,000 in 1965 to an average of about 1 million each year since the mid-2000s. So accordingly, the foreign-born applications have risen from 9.6 million in 1965 to a record high of 45 million in 2015. So there's an estimate of a new study from the Pew Research Center on Hispanic Trends Project, and he says immigration accounted for 5% of the U.S. population in 1965, and now it comprised 14%, maybe higher. So clearly they knew this bill was a revolutionary bill. And the bill was signed in December the 1st, 1965, maybe 10 months after Malcolm X was assassinated, 3 years after Martin Luther King was assassinated. And so they clearly knew what they were doing. It was basically to put a dagger in the population growth of the Black American population. They clearly knew this. They had foresight and insight about this, and it stated the fact that Lyndon B. Johnson said in itself, the bill that we signed today is not a revolutionary bill. He knew exactly what words to use.
Well, it's because they put in a poison pill.
A revolutionary.
If you're going to disarm something like the Civil Rights Act 1965 and 69, yeah, you got to have a steady parade of poison pills. So what they do is they made these laws, which did not go nearly far enough for Black folk, and then immediately right thereafter put in some laws that will destabilize and neutralize those laws over time. So Dr. John Henry Clark just talked about this. All you great thinkers talk about this. Black folk think in terms of 5 or 10 years. White folk think in terms of 50 or 100. So they planned this and plotted this out and understood, okay, where would this take us in decades? The Civil Rights Act of 1965 and 69 will get them out the streets. It will get them out the streets and get them home. Remember, that's always been the priority of Black people, is getting us out of the streets. Getting us out of the streets so that you're no longer kicking up dust. You're no longer destabilizing the situation. You're no longer making it unsafe. Get them out of the streets. Okay, we passed a law. Don't worry. With some government jobs, some government cheese. Don't worry. It'll be okay there. With everybody else, they're not offering them government jobs or government cheese. I want you all to understand that. With everybody else, they're not offering them that. They're offering them something different. But you're absolutely right. These are poison pills, and there's been a nonstop parade of them. And let us never forget, Lyndon B. Johnson was a staunch segregationist. Let us never forget that. Kennedy only chose him because he felt like you couldn't win the South on your own. You're too much of a Northerner. He chose Lyndon B. Johnson because, well, you can win the South. But Lyndon Johnson was never a friend to Black people. They have tried to rewrite him as being one. That man was never a friend to Black people. And I don't believe for a damn second he had an epiphany. He understood, okay, we need to put these laws into place to get folks out the street. His job as president of the United States to make sure the government does not fall into disarray. Okay, he did that. And now we're going to put some new laws into place to neutralize the laws we just passed. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me get caller area code 205. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Uncle Charles from Alabama. You are so right, brother. This is the motto from now on, Black people. No tangibles, no vote. Until we see something in writing, until we see something that's done for our people, we're not accepting anything. See, the day of the bucket of fried chicken and watermelon around the back door is over. That is over. See, you won't be giving us that and then say, remember me when you go to the polls. It won't work no more. I switched to Republican. That's what I did. I believe that this country is in trouble. And I'm scared of a lot of things, brother, but I ain't never been scared of the grocery store. And I'm scared now because them prices is high, bro. Let me tell you something. People need to understand that civil rights movement, Black folks didn't pay for that. You had special interests, Jews, paid for that civil rights movement. What you think we paid for it with goat blood? No, we didn't pay for that. We got to stop accepting that fried chicken and that hen behind the back door. Then you got Roland Martin. Roland Martin do all this black talk. Brothers, yeah, brothers. And yet still he in the church dancing with Hillary Clinton. Stop, y'all. Stop. Listen to what this brother is telling y'all. He's trying to get a message across to our people. No tangibles, no vote. I don't want no more of your talk. I don't want no more of your handshakes. And that's it. Black people, we need to stand up for one another. And listen to this. As long as you got black people that's trying to go the right way and stand up for their people, it's always going to be some blacks that going to play that role. And because if it was coons in the slave days, it's coons with suits on today. Believe that.
They definitely have their options for doing that. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Let me get caller area code 929. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good evening, Jason. This is Daryl from Chicago.
Daryl from Chicago. What's on your mind?
Jason, you hit the nail right on the head again. As always with this situation, the trick bag stuff, the way this movement has been going on. You said something that was loud and clear, and you constantly been saying this to people here with the new black media, and that's a big time blessing for you to be able to break it down like that. And we're going to support what's going on, but at the same time, we have to be aware. And we have to really be on code with what we do. And this is just a classic example of one more thing out there that a law has been said one way, and then you got something to back that law up, to twist it around the way they really want to say it. And the expert analysis that you're giving is tremendous. And this is something that's been brought to the table many, many times. I've listened to the Honorable Dr. Carl Anderson state some things that it just was off the charts with how the law and how they try to play you with the law. And this has been one of the things where everybody else is getting stuff but us. But I know that we're going to get reparation. I know it's going to do it. They're going to try to water it down. They'll try their best to do it.
Well, they're definitely going to do their best, but that's the reason for us to do our best. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Let me get caller from area code 770. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Dex from Toronto.
Dex from Toronto, what's on your mind?
I just wanted to buttress what you were saying. I must say that they're not even limiting the suppression of black people to the interior of the United States. I just read an article from, I believe it was the New York Times, stated that the America, along with other rich nations, were now paying climate reparations, because that's essentially what they are, for loss and damage due to climate change to poor nations. Interesting how all these people can get money, with the exception of black people here in America.
Absolutely. You're not viable without financial resources. That's the whole thing. And as black people are moved to be able to promote our interests, first and foremost, you gotta artificially prop up these other people. This is why I said this a decade ago. Illegal aliens couldn't make it unless you give them free schooling, free health care, and free money. Otherwise, they can't make it. They're not going to pull themselves about their bootstraps. That doesn't work. That's fantasy talk. That's fantasy talk. They come and yell at us thinking that we don't know any better. No, if you don't give them resources, they're not going to be viable. That's the way it's always been. Whether it was the Homestead Act, when Europeans came over here, they had to have some resources. You can't just come over here and give them a patch of dirt. No, I got to have a patch of dirt. Y'all got to give me some money to prime the pump and get me started. So yes, they're getting resources to get them started because they're looking forward to the next 500 years. The only legitimate threat to white supremacy is black people. That is it. The descendants of the slaves of American slaves are the only threat to white supremacy. Everybody else is snapping to attention and standing in line. We're the only ones who've actually rebelled and resisted. So now they're kicking in overdrive. They recognize who and what the threat is. That's what they're targeting. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller area code 415. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Don P. from San Francisco, who's actually in St. Louis right now, checking the deal, trying to help our people.
Right,
man, you are so on point.
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, Jason. You are so on point, man. It's just live and in living color. Chuck Schumer knows the deal. My people in St. Louis, when they came and visited California, they said, we would live in California except for the homeless population. And when I ride around San Francisco, there's been a total replacement. I mean, a total replacement in every sector in life. But as it relates to this law, I'm going to swing it back to that law. This is wash, rinse, and repeat. 12th century, 13th century, what the Catholic Church and the Papal Bulls in Spain and Portugal did to us, it's the very same thing. These people don't know a different playbook. And they continued it up through chattel slavery and said, remember, after chattel slavery, we still own y'all and your children. It's called 13th Amendment. And so what I was thinking about when you were talking about people coming over was there's a little voluntary block where people have the opportunity to redefine themselves. And as it relates to this and other things, that box that says Hispanic, non-black, they check that box, reinvent themselves, insert themselves into the society. But isn't that what the folks who run the world do?
Well, they want to have the ability to define that. Look, with whiteness comes privileges, and when you are given an option of choosing it, then when they finally do, and I'm telling you, there's going to come a day that box is going to go away, and they will be given the ability to just be counted as white again. The only thing is that some of those ethnicities that are going to hang in there strong, they're going to get moved to the wayside. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. By the way, that's another thing for you all to think about there. When the day comes that box goes away altogether. There's a lot of folk who haven't thought about that. But by the way, have you thought about what will happen when that box goes away altogether? Think about this that nobody else has said. So you'll have 45 or 50 million Latinos with a white population of around 210 million. Although it won't remain 210 long, because when you add the Latinos to them, what do you know? That white population is now spiked up to 260 plus. Overnight, didn't require a federal law, didn't require any type of political help. If they have the option to willingly classify themselves as that, what do you do then? Call of America 202. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
D from Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
All right, D, what's on your mind?
Great program you're doing this evening. This whole Chuck Schumer, what it is, I'm feeling this is another attack on the black community, another wave. This time, I believe, in my opinion, it's a cahoots between both parties, governors from the Republican Party allowing these wave of immigrants and shipping them to black-centered cities or areas to offset our numbers. And I think also this is the U.S. is doing a playbook from Argentina to the erasure of black folks, just like in Argentina. And I hope that we wake up and see this and we get on code, and we need to be anti-immigration heavy and block this, because this is a coordinated effort that these both parties are doing. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get one more thing here. Like I said, I was going to mention this here before, that in San Francisco, they're giving guaranteed income to illegals. I'm not illegals, but transgender, rather. Giving guaranteed income to them there. Your mayor, London Breed in San Francisco, let me tell you right there, she has been, they know how to pick them. They know how to pick them. They bring in individuals who have nothing but burning hostility towards black folk. So you sit up here and you have individuals who might look like you, but they identify with anti-black hostility around every corner. There is no way in the world you leapfrog black people and end up here. Except what you're saying to them is, hey, understand something, people. Where government money goes, government money incentivizes societal behavior. Let me say that again. When the government starts subsidizing things, government subsidies influence societal behavior. They cut their teeth with this on black folk. Section 8, WIC vouchers and whatnot. You can control people if you start paying for things like that. So what are you doing? If you're paying people to identify as transgender, if you are paying people to identify as transgender, no, this is not conspiracy theory. This is not conjecture. How many of you are putting the pieces together? How many of you are putting it together right now? If the government is handing out checks in black society, remember we used to have to talk about the folks with the crazy checks. Remember that? How many black folk did you have who sat up here and started claiming mental illnesses and things? Who go down to the county and get you a crazy check? Next thing you know, they went from pretending to being crazy. Next thing you know, they went from pretending to be crazy. Next, the children they had wasn't pretending anymore. They weren't pretending anymore. It's not accidental. You see, if you're going to get folk to sit up here and behave in a certain way, you got to throw dollars out there. Next thing you know, yeah. If you pay people, if you tell folk there's a check, there's free money in identifying a certain way, well, that's going to appeal. Who in the hell? I think it's like $1,800. What you going to do with $1,800? Who is going to be interested in doing this for $1,800? They mess with my connection here tonight, but
this is what I mean when the transphobia just comes out. The audacity and just the arrogance for cis women to believe that they own periods, that they own womanhood. You don't. Okay, you don't own periods. You don't own womanhood. You experience both, and both are different. This is what I mean when the transphobia.
You all heard that.
This is what I mean when the transphobia just comes out. The audacity and just the arrogance for cis women to believe that they own periods, that they own womanhood. You don't. Okay, you don't own periods. You don't own womanhood. You experience both, and both are different for every person. But as a cis woman, it doesn't belong to you, so you can't gatekeep it.
There were a lot of black females suffering from emotional imbalance, emotional issues, and for the last 40 years, they've been treating this like this was cute. The chickens have come home to roost with their high heel shoes and their lipstick on. And I want you all to understand something. When you see something like this, when you have somebody like London Breed telling you we're going to pay $1,800 a month in San Francisco, what's that going to do for you in San Francisco? Who is it in San Francisco who needs an additional $1,800 a month? Who's at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder in San Francisco and would be susceptible to adopting this kind of behavior if it helped them to make ends meet? $720 degrees. The 10 tons of analysis you'll receive nowhere else. Had you thought of this as the art of war? Did you follow this all the way through to ask all the relevant questions? By the way, who would even accept this? Who is this aimed at? Who's $1,800 in San Francisco, where the average price of a home is $1.2 million? How is $1,800? Who's that going to help? Oh, I think I know. I think I know exactly who would be lined up for it. You've economically marginalized them and everything else. And by the way, more coercion. Well, we didn't make a law. We didn't demand that they take it. I mean, you have to identify this as, okay. Okay. It's not an accident. When you see these things, it is not an accident. Caller from America 347, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, God, this is John from Brooklyn.
John from Brooklyn, what's on your mind?
Yes, sir. First and foremost, I sent you a text message on one of your last broadcasts where you was talking about the Warnock and Herschel Walker situation. You asked me to send you a message right back. I don't know if you remember. Anyway, I'm paying attention to this situation right here. And number one, I sent something in the text message where I teach my daughter, be the wolf, don't be the sheep. Because you mentioned something about the wolf, right? And everybody be calling over here and you know, they got their personal opinions about situations, but nobody's really tackling the topic, right?
Okay,
brother. And I think I'm going to
brother, one question. Did I send you that message on YouTube?
Yeah, that was on your business.
Yeah. That wasn't me.
Oh, okay.
That was one of those bot accounts. So you're probably going to be getting all kinds of text messages for porn and vacuum cleaners and everything else. So I'm sorry you got caught up in that, but yeah, that wasn't Jason Black. That was
okay.
That was a bot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I said something wrong and you wanted to question me. I know how you do.
No, brother, I don't ask anybody to text me. I don't like it when my family does it. I'm certainly not going to ask y'all at random to do it. So, no, sir, I can assure you that was not me. I got folk waiting on phone calls from me right now. So, I can assure you, that's not me. If I need something from you, I already got your number. I assure you, I already have your number.
That is the elephant off my back, my brother. I'm just gonna assure because I thought I said something wrong, and I thought you was trying to like reach out to me and some shit and be like, "Yo, what you was talking about right there?" I was just trying to agree with you. You know what I mean?
No. So that's some dude in Calcutta at a computer banging out code. That's him. That's not me.
I thought that it might be that white supremacist that likes to call and chime in on occasion. You know what I'm saying?
Well. In any case, go ahead and finish your point.
Yeah. So, so the bottom line of what I was calling about is, you know, a lot of people call in and they like to chime in about certain things. And I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm one of the guys that called in previously to your call, your broadcast, because it's not a show. And you know, I try to spread the message to everybody that I know that because this shit is real, man. This shit is real. It's not nothing to be like when people call in sometimes and they be like trying to say, oh, you know, we gotta be doing like black people need to be doing this and black people need to be doing this. They're not really, to me, paying attention to the message. You know what I'm saying? This is your message to the people, and we need to take this shit more so serious, man. You know what I mean? I be like, listen, damn it. This shit hurts my heart to be getting this kind of information on a daily basis from you. Because, in a sense, we know these white people, this white power situation is, and I live in New York City and I see these white people walking down the street on a daily basis. I live in a comfortable neighborhood. They look at me like, why we still got niggas over here? We still got niggas over here?
Well, I don't think they should be too surprised.
To live over here? God damn it.
Well, I don't think they should be too surprised. They didn't run everybody off. But yeah, once they see one or two of you, it's like, oh, hell, we got to go take care of that now, don't we? Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller area code 904. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Sean, Jacksonville, Florida.
Sean in Jacksonville, what's on your mind?
Yeah, Jason, I'm starting. I think the thesis of Bowling Ball's book is wrong. He says that the browning of America is frightening white people, and they're losing their mind. Chuck Schumer doesn't seem to be too concerned.
He really doesn't. He doesn't look scared at all. By the way, your Republicans don't look that scared, but Chuck Schumer's not scared of a damn thing. Now, that should tell you something. Roland can't name. The only time that, quote, browning scares these folk is if it's a black person. So it's not the browning of America, it's the blacking of America. That's the only time they get scared. The browning of America doesn't bother them at all. They're the ones bringing them over here. They're the ones paying them to come here. You see, you got to follow the money. You take a look at the top of the damn food chain. Whether it's these construction sites, illegals on the construction sites, illegals in the fields, illegals at these schools and housekeeping in the hotel industry, it's white folk paying them. If they're afraid of it, then why the hell are they paying billions of dollars to support them at every level? You don't do that when you're afraid. So like I say, Roland is just demonstrating once again why he is the most inept, idiotic political analyst a person could imagine. You'd be better off with the muffler boy at Meineke or the oil change guy at Pep Boys giving you political advice than Roland.
Amazing. And one last thing, and that is how can Schumer fix his mouth to say that that we're short of laborers and workers? I mean, doesn't anybody fact check?
You're depending on the white supremacist media that's promoting the agenda to fact check him. No, as far as this isn't a matter of facts. This is a matter of propaganda. It's a matter of propaganda. We're white and we say so. The truth is whatever we tell you it is, whatever day we tell you it is. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get a caller from area code 323. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, Jason. It's Felicia from Los Angeles.
All right, Felicia from Los Angeles. Congratulations on your new mayor. I'm sure she's going to do plenty for black folk. I'm sure she's going to do plenty.
Oh my gosh, it's a disaster out here. I can't even talk about it. So bad out here. Which she's not going to do anything. We know who her base is, and it's going to be everything for the Latinos. But we had a couple of days ago, we had an incident where this 22-year-old ran like head-on into a group of sheriff cadets that were training for the sheriffs. They were running.
Yeah,
and
this is like I want to say it's like a white Latino, if I saw him correctly. It's like a white Latino, and he ran into a group of 22 cadets out there. So, yeah.
It was like head-on, but I noticed there were all the recruits. And it being infiltrated all throughout law enforcement out here. Not one black person was in there, from the sheriff deputies on down to the ambulance people. It was just very interesting watching the dynamics. So I just said so many things are changing out here. But also I wanted to ask you, because my 11-year-old, I don't know how to explain it. She wants to, why are we so hated? I mean, you put us at the bottom of the barrel, you deny us everything, and yet that's still not good enough. So I'll take the comment off the air. If you can just maybe explain, I don't know how to explain it to her. I really don't know why we're so hated.
It's the same thing Dr. Frances Cress Welsing described it, genetic annihilation. That fear is at the base of white supremacy. That is the root of what white supremacy fears. From America to Nazi Germany to South America, they are afraid of genetic annihilation. How do you reason with someone who is telling you that your very existence is an existential threat to theirs? That the very fact you are alive is a problem. And you can sit there and try to give them all the reassurances in the world you want to. Look, dude, I ain't looking for your daughters, your cousins, your nieces. I ain't interested in nothing in your family. And all he's going to say to you is, you may be telling the truth. But what's to stop you? if you ever decide to do it. Yeah, you're telling me this right now, but what's to stop you if you ever decide to act on it?
Okay.
You cannot reason with somebody who is afraid that your very existence is a threat to them, that at any moment you're going to spring and pounce. That's the issue. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. That is simple enough for you to explain to a 5-year-old. They are afraid that you are going to genetically annihilate them. They are afraid that your existence will be the end of their lives. That's what they're afraid of. That's what it's always been. That's what it will always be. You will never be able to get around that. White supremacy depends on whiteness. They can assimilate all of these others, but they can't assimilate you. They can mix with all of these others. They can't mix with you. So you see, you would have to go back and chisel away and take out whole parts of history. If you put those on the shoulders of black folk, in their minds, you would have to go and erase whole parts of history, which is why they've been hard at work erasing whole parts of history for us. The statues and the paintings and the stories, they don't trust black people to be the custodians of that. Furthermore, they would never allow it because it's not our legacy. They would never allow it because that's not our legacy. They don't trust us to carry on their legacy. Furthermore, how would we? They don't trust that. So when you're talking to someone who is afraid that you merely drawing the breath of life constitutes an ever-present threat to their existence, you can forget about reason. You can forget about negotiation. He will shake hands with you, and when he leaves the room, he's going to go right back to saying, okay, now how do we get rid of them? Okay, let's rework this formula. Let's rework the scheme. We got to deal with that. You cannot leave them walking around out there. Understand something, people, even if you could convince them that you have no designs on their sons, daughters, or anything else, they'd be like, okay, you don't, but what about your children? What about your children's children? At some point, somebody's going to cross that line. And once they do, the floodgates open. And then next thing you know, this isn't a matter of whether or not we retain a language or a name. We won't even be able to look in the mirror and recognize ourselves anymore. You won't even be able to recognize yourselves anymore. Do you understand how that works? You won't even be able to recognize yourselves if you allow them to do this. So that's the kind of thing that they want you to understand here. I want you to see when you're talking to your children about that, that's going to be the kind of thing that you're going to want to tell them. By the way, in the chat room there, Mr. Sanders, you have 2 minutes to get on the line. Seems like you have questions there. You have 2 minutes to be on the line, sir. I don't want anybody else calling up. He's got a lot to say there, so let's make sure that he has the ability to say that. The telephone number is on your screen. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. Okay, well, what about Bob? Bob is taking a permanent vacation. No, sir, that was not a request for you, so no. What about Bob? Bob can take a permanent vacation. Just understand we are not the least bit afraid or worried about confronting silliness and stupidity. We have no problem to do that. So, Bob, it's not about what you need to do, it's what you have to do. And if you don't want to call in, that's perfectly fine here. But you're going to stay gone. So just understand he's afraid for a reason. And he should be. And he should be. just understand if they actually had a point, they would actually defend their point. Caller from area code 615. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Turn your speakers off.
Turn your speakers off.
Okay. Caller from 615. I don't know if that was Bob or not, but Bob will be gone. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here for you all here. Thank you very much for joining us. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program here on PayPal, Cash App, or Super Chat. So Mr. Baker, Tom Slick in the Super Chat, thank you very much for your support tonight, brother. We appreciate that. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time we are here. We are the channel that YouTube fears. And as you've heard tonight, they fear us for good reason. So click that red subscribe button, click that yellow notification bell, join us each and every time. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, you want to go there and check out our groundbreaking best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, Race War, all available on DVD, streaming, and on Amazon. Go to blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I want to thank all of you for joining us here tonight. Thank you for contributing on PayPal, Cash App, or Super Chat. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, Black is the future, and the future is the agenda.